So I think we need to think about believing and thinking. When I say I think, I'm projecting this thought, I'm thinking. When I say I believe, I'm no longer thinking because I believe and I don't need to think. Am I making sense? Yes. I'm not asking if you agree. Alright? Alright? Okay, that's thinking and believing. There's a distinction. Because every time, so it's almost like, to me, you know, like incantations. You know, and some people ohm, and it's about the vibratory reality. See, so I think we have been on a mass manipulation of psychology. We're imprinted with certain words. We say them out of habit. I believe or I think. And I think if we say I think, we're doing something to the energy. We're doing something to not cooperate with him. It's an act of non-cooperation. Everything, and the danger about believing, everything that ever happened as the civilizing process went through its motions. Number one, we are all the descendants of tribes. Every one of us is the descendant of a tribe. We are all children of the earth. At some point in the evolution of our evolution, all right, every one of our ancestors met the machine that exterminated the natives here, that enslaved the blacks. Every one of our ancestors met that machine, met that predator energy. The tribes of Europe met it. Everybody met it as it passed on through doing what it's doing. And it used violence, terror, and trauma, all right, to imprint into our consciousness to believe that their way was better. To believe, because we refused to believe in the beginning. So they used this terror and this genocide and this trauma as a part of a mining process to get us to believe reality the way they wanted us to believe it. So now we take this about believing. We take this about believing. Every negative thing that we feel about ourselves, every negative self-image that we have, every fear that eats us that we have, we believe these things about ourselves. And if we look at every one of these things was imprinted into our consciousness by someone else. We didn't think it up by ourselves. So anyway, that part. Because I look at everything as energy. And I look at it because I come out of the 60s. So anyway, I'm a child of the 60s. I'm old now. But what I remember from the 60s, what I think is lacking in my generation is I think my generation, we're not telling the generations behind us the mistakes we made. We're not telling the generations behind us, hey, look. You know, it's almost like an apology for not, I mean, our intentions were good, our motives were good, and all of that was good, but it's almost like we owe an apology to the generation behind us because we didn't, because the beast is bigger than it was when we started out. So what happened? How did it remain the same? How did it absorb all of our energy? How did it absorb it and grow stronger off of what we were doing? It did it because it absorbed it and swallowed it. Because basically everything we did was based upon our good intentions, and it was the way that our parents did it, or their parents did it, and it was the way that they did it, and we went through the same motions, and we're still going through the same motions, and the beast continues to get bigger. And I find that fundamentally at it, to me, it's like we need to really slow down and think, because in the 60s, we emotionally reacted to what we believed. We believed this was right. We believed that was right. And so they made token concessions, and then they absorbed. Well, we got civil rights, but look, you know, look at this community. Look at the economic devastation. All right, so we got civil rights, and they still turn around and do what they do. Prisons are full of blacks. All right, women are still struggling for theirs. You look at that poverty. So everything that we did, we just held some ground that being lost in your generation, and your generation has having to come up and fight this fight, so to speak. And I think it's because we didn't trust our intelligence enough to think clearly and coherently about what we were doing. I think that whatever's going on we cooperated with them, even when we rebelled. So I'm looking at this thing about this cooperation. I think maybe, you know, and it's kind of something that really needs to think about, because every human being has to figure out what is their own idea of not to cooperate. But I'd say the first step to me is about, let's look at ourselves and recognize ourselves. This environmental, this better environment that we proclaim that we want. This spirituality that we proclaim that we represent. But then let's look at ourselves and recognize ourselves as human beings. Like thinking and believing. As a human being, it's our responsibility to recognize reality. Recognize the reality that we're in. Recognize reality. To recognize means that you look at a thing every way that it can be looked at until you see it and you recognize it. Or we can judge reality. And when we judge reality, once again, our ability to recognize is limited by the prejudices of our judgment. See, they put these concepts into our consciousness and we use them habitually. I believe this. We don't think. We're shutting off the switch. And judge, you can tell the way that the judgment has taken place in this society. And what's unfortunate about it is, see, everyone that judges, we judge ourselves the harshest. Where no one really sees, we judge ourselves the harshest. So I think these are concepts based upon us cooperating with them. And what I'm trying to find a way is, where will we really truly start thinking as about a part of whatever it is we've got to do going into the future. We base it on non-cooperation. We understand, we take the time within our own individual consciousness to understand and look and recognize the ways that we cooperate even in our rebellion. If we beat ourselves up in our head with, I'm not good enough and there's something wrong with us, we're cooperating with them. I'm talking about non-cooperation at that basic part of our own being a human being. And back to see, because we entered into this reality for whatever reason, and we all went through whatever the trauma is that we all went through. And generally as a result of the trauma, depending on how early it happens, but generally as a result of trauma, the traumatized blame themselves that something was wrong with them because it even happened to them. And that's where that kind of judgment, see, that's that judgment. But if we recognize reality, no one ever asked to be traumatized. Ever. No one asked to be traumatized. And if we look within our own lives, right, and understand how the bad things, the negative things, understand how they happened to us and what happened, and recognize that we never lost our goodness, we never lost our innocence. What happened is we were traumatized in such a way that it put us off a balance, off a center, and it distorted how we perceive ourselves and then how we perceive reality. Because I'm telling you, you know, what's needed is a new infusion of energy. And I think that energy comes from clear, coherent use of our intelligence. These things that we say, we respect spirituality, then respect our intelligence. Use it clearly and coherently. Take care, that is our spiritual responsibility, because everything that we create in this reality, we manifest it through how we perceive reality. We manifest it through our intelligence. Now, I don't know, I want to read. Oh, and the other one I want to put out here, because you see, not trying to start anything, but Obama did a really good job of imprinting certain brainwash illusions in the consciousness of the people who were desperate to believe. Right? Because I noticed what was interesting, the phrase hope or change, hope, and you can believe in. You can believe in it so you don't have to think about it. You can hope for it so you don't have to truly act. Right? And the change, nothing changed. All right? Skin color of the predator reptilian that is running the show. Right?